What's up, family? It's your boy back with another video, and today we're headed straight to Indiana with the Indiana Fever because the Indiana Fever front office just gave us something we haven't gotten all season. Real answers. Now, before we jump in, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe if you rock with real hoops talk. Not just reaction videos, not just drama, but true basketball analysis from a fan who's been watching the game with eyes wide open. Let's get right into it. This isn't about a single loss or one bad quarter. This is about what's been happening behind the scenes in Indiana, where injuries have decimated the roster, confusion has set in, and fans have been begging for clarity. And finally, the Fever president, Kelly Krauskopf, and head coach Stephanie White stepped up to the mic and gave us some truth. Check this out, family.
Steph, what can you share about Sophie and Sydney at this point?
Yeah, I think we got good news, excuse me, from both of their MRIs. As good a news as you can get. And so right now it's a day-to-day thing. We're looking forward to hopefully them returning at some point sooner, rather than later. But at the same time, it's how each of them progresses in their rehab and in their return to the court action.
At least encouraging too to see Sydney on a bike and whatever else she was able to do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for sure. Sid's been progressing really quickly. She's going to get out there and get some shots up too. So we'll see where she sits when she comes back after her recovery from today. Make sure we don't have any setbacks, and then we'll see where she is tomorrow.
How about Damaris? We saw her just standing.
Yeah.
Is there something there too?
Yeah, just a rest day. I think for Dee, she's got a lot of miles on, and making sure she gets a little bit of rest. Had a little bit of soreness in her lower body, so don't want that to create or to turn into anything.
For Sid, was that knee injury, like upper leg?
No, it's like upper leg.
And for Sophie, was that kind of re-aggravating her ankle injury, or was it something different?
Yeah, I believe so. That same ankle. Yeah.
What was it like over the last 24 hours? As I'm sure you got with the front office and discussed the short-term plan and the long-term plan.
Yeah, I mean, it's been trying to figure out all of our options. All of our options from potential hardship, contracts and players, and who's available, and to how we're, and with our coaches, really like how we reimagine how we're using our players. So we've had a good opportunity in practice today to get a lot of different looks. We anticipate Washington coming with a lot of pressure, so we've got to have our bigs be able to bring the ball down the floor, initiate offense. What are the best things for us to get into? Getting back to the basics and simplifying.
For you, when you're thinking about a potential hardship player, are you valuing someone like knows the system, has been here, or is it maybe best player available at that position?
I think best player available at that position who can add value on both ends of the floor. Certainly we need to have someone who can add value on the defensive end. We got to have somebody who can help us navigate and get into offense, handle the ball. Since we're down to two healthy guards, the goal would be to get everybody kind of back to their natural positions if we can. But at the same time, we can't control everything, so we'll get the best player that we can get that will fit into how we want to play.
Do you anticipate signing a hardship player before?
I hope so.
Yeah. What does simplify mean in terms of with this group? Is that more so what you're calling out there and more read and react, or what does that mean for you?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more calling and structure in our offense, a little less reading, so that we can kind of predetermine a little bit more, maybe giving three or four actions or sets that they can run, as opposed to giving them 6 or 7 options. So we simplify it that way. Who's on the floor with whom, and then same thing defensively. We'd like to get to where we can cover different players different ways, but we're going to have some players playing out of position, so we've got to simplify it and just get really good at 1 or 2 things.
The one that talked about kind of not being able to after Friday's game. What do you do with all these injuries and potentially bringing someone in to try to get into some?
I think the simplifying hopefully helps that. Giving them just a couple of things that we can focus on, and we continue to really rep over the last 2 days on both ends of the floor. Knowing that some players are going to be playing out of position and freeing them up to stay aggressive and just play. That's the fun, challenging part of the coaching situation is still putting them in positions to be successful while it might be a little bit outside their comfort zone.
Do you try to use any what they did at the beginning of the season, the slow start, the injuries piling up as something here?
Yeah, I mean, every team's different. Every year is different. I mean, every game is different. So I think this long enough, you know it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And you know, the year we won in 2012, we started the season 1-7, and we had a lot of, you know, ups and downs. I mean, there's every year is different. So I think, you know, you just try to find strength, you know, and sort of pull in, you know, this next day is a new opportunity. So, you know, I'm glad it's early in the season. We still have opportunities ahead of us. We have a long ways to go.
Just on the Fever side of things, for the last 2 days, been like kind of figuring out injuries, figuring out potential hardship situations too.
Yeah, I mean, we're down in numbers, but we're looking at adding another player for a replacement player to help us with our numbers and try to get people healthy and try to get you know, a full roster back together. I mean, games are still coming, so it's going to be an adjustment, but we have a good group, we have good depth, thankfully, so that should help us.
Are you hoping to have that player before Tuesday's game?
We're hoping, yeah.
Have you ever been through any circumstance this early into the season and such, where you're battling 3-4 down? Like, how unique is this?
Remember, I don't, you know, probably, but I mean, because, you know, the WNBA, I mean, the roster sizes are so much smaller. So when you get down to the 11-player roster and you lose 3 players like that, now you've got to add a quick player to your roster. So, you know, it's something that you just deal with being in this league, with the roster sizes being a little bit smaller, and that's why you try to build for depth.
Is this maybe another perfect example of where the WFA could get to where they had, like the NBA has 2 ways, but maybe you call them player development roles and they could be available in times like this? Would that be ideal?
I mean, just more bodies would be good. Yeah.
All right, so let's start with the obvious. The team is running on fumes. At this point in the season, the Fever had been hit by a storm of injuries. Sophia Cunningham is out. Sydney Colson is down. Caitlin Clark has already missed games. That's not just 1 or 2 players. That's the core of your guard rotation, your spacing, your vocal leadership, and your offensive identity. And you can't run a functioning modern offense in the WNBA with 2 healthy guards. You just can't. So Kelly Krauskopf made it clear in her press conference the front office is looking at hardship contracts to bring in emergency help. Now, look, that's not ideal. Let's be honest. These are short-term deals for players to help stabilize things while the starters recover. But what choice do they have? What's wild is that it took this long, and fans have been watching this roster deteriorate in real time and wondering, where's the move? Where's the plan? And we just watched the Fever pass on Holly Jones, who's now with Atlanta. And let me say it louder. Holly Jones was available in Indiana past, even when they were desperate for a ball handler. Um, handlers. So that's the kind of move that deserves scrutiny. And she could have came in, settled the pace, gave them real minutes, and instead, crickets. Right? Now, credit to Coach Stephanie White. You could tell she's in the fire right now, trying to hold this thing together. And what I respect about her response is she didn't sugarcoat it. She said straight up, we're simplifying the offense. Instead of trying to get into a 6 or 7 reads per possession, they're dialing it down to this 3 or 4 primary sets. Clear structure, less improv. How can I put this? Less improvisation, and that's the right call in my opinion. Um, when players are out of position and playing unfamiliar roles and don't have rhythm together, you need complex playbooks and you need clarity in reps. But even with that strategy, the question becomes who's running the offense when Sydney Carson is out and you only got 1 or 2 natural guards on the floor. Who initiates? You know what I'm saying? So that's very, very interesting because if you really think about it, um, if you look at Dana Evans, right? And I'm gonna show you guys Dana Evans, right? She's a basketball guard, right? She's a guard. 5'6" her height. Dana Evans has shown flashes, but you can't play her 35 minutes a night with no backup except her to anchor the offense every possession, right? This is an example. And Stephanie White mentioned they're experimenting with players outside of their natural roles, but let's keep it real. That only works in short bursts, is my point. Long term, that breaks players down physically and mentally. A forward playing the two might survive a few possessions, but over a stretch of games, that's a recipe for turnovers, um, missed assignments, and frustration. And I'm just being real. That's exactly what we're seeing now. So, and speaking of turnovers, they gave up 15 turnovers that led to 30 points in their most recent game. That's the game right there. You don't need a fancy stat breakdown or a long-winded analysis. 30-point turnovers in the WNBA game is an automatic L. Why so many turnovers? Part of the obvious. Fatigue, lack of chemistry, players out of position. But there's also hesitation, and that's where the mental side comes in because Coach White even said it. Players are second guessing everything, and they're unsure whether to pass it, whether to cut, whether to drive, or pull back. And that's not just physical, that's a result of a team uncertainty of its identity. Basketball, especially at a pro level, is about rhythm and trust. And when everyone's overthinking, you get what we saw, which is missed layups, passes to empty space, people running into each other. And it's not just bad offense, it's a team that's just mentally out of sync. Right. So let's take a step back here because this isn't just about Indiana. This is about a league wide issue that needs to be addressed, I feel. The WNBA has 12 teams. Each team carries 11 players max. And some nights, due to cap constraints, teams only dress 9 or 10. So when you lose 3 players in a week, your entire system just falls apart. Coach White even hinted at we need more bodies. Imagine if the W had something like the NBA's two-way contracts. Emergency call-ups, development players that could slot in when needed. Why hasn't the league figured this out yet? Until roster size expand, what happened to Indiana this week will happen again. It's not bad luck, it's just bad infrastructure from a business perspective. And I'm gonna give you a real world example learning from the NBA, right? So let me give you a real world comp. Remember when the Miami Heat in the bubble season, injuries hit them hard, but they had versatile depth. They could plug in guys like Gabe Vincent, Max Struss, Kendrick Nunn, and players like that weren't household names but could run the system. Why? Because they had development pathways. The W don't got that. The G League exists for the NBA. Where's the equivalent for the WNBA? When a Fever player goes down, there's no system to call someone who's up or someone who knows the team's terminology, sets, or defensive philosophy, and they got to bring a new body in and start from scratch. That's just not how you build consistency, right? So, and then despite all that, the Fever showed heart. You know what I'm saying? The fourth quarter, they went on a 16-0 run. That was pure energy, pure fight. Even Coach White said the team found another gear, and ironically, it came after another injury. And as tough it was to lose Sydney and seeing Sophie go down and give the team a jolt, they started defending, hitting open shots, cutting hard, and playing with urgency. And that's what this team is capable of when they're locked in. And yet the final play, the one that could have sent it to overtime or won it, was sloppy. Right? I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest here, family. Um, it is a fact. And it's just the inbound wasn't clean. The timing was off. It ended in a wild three when it should have been a simple score. And that's what happens when chemistry ain't there. So here's where I stand. The Fever need to sign a hardship player. They need to sign a hardship player ASAP. They need to find a capable ball handler, someone who could give them 10 to 15 minutes, protect the ball, and help this team settle down. That's priority number one. But more importantly, the front office needs to reevaluate how they're building this roster. No more passing on talents like Holly Jones. And I'll put a name to a face right here so y'all know who I'm talking about. Because I like to show what I'm talking about. Right? And where's I getting at? They need to find a capable ball handler, and they need to not pass up talent like this, Holly Jones, and no more rolling the dice on depth. If you're gonna draft a generational player like Caitlin Clark, you owe it to her and the fan base to build a structure around her that sets her up to thrive. No more excuses. The team wins. The team's window is open. Now it's time to act like it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Did the Fever wait too long to address this injury crisis? Who would you have signed if you were in charge? Should the WNBA expand rosters or add two-way contracts? And can Indiana bounce back if they get healthy? Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop your thoughts down in the comments below because we're building a community here of real hoop minds who love the games and demand better for it. Until next time, it's your boy. Stay locked in, spread that peace, love, and positivity. Let the love supersede the hate. On that note, family, peace.